Since I think the first drop from AAA was in 2011, I'm not sure if the downgrade on Friday sends a strong message. I don't think Moody's knew anything that we didn't know on Friday afternoon. I believe the markets should understand that the bond market has already put in the fact that the US is no longer a AAA country. That's why I'd see this as a chance to buy. The United States is in the middle of a huge financial fight right now. We can see how this is hurting crypto markets right now. During this bull run, Bitcoin has been jumping all over the place. We were at $70,000 not too long ago. We've now gone over 111,000 cents per coin. Of course, we've gone down a little since then, and XRP has been doing the same thing. XRP was, I think, at all-time highs of $3.00 and 50 cents per coin. It then went all the way back down to about 168. It's back to almost 250 now. The way prices for all of these cryptocurrencies are changing so quickly and drastically is really strange. But Tom Lee has been someone who has stayed very optimistic through all of this doubt. There are also a lot of great calls and predictions that have come true because of him. He's been talking a lot lately about the latest trade war news, changes in credit ratings, and how he thinks these things will affect the markets. For that reason, that's what we'll talk about next. This is really cool stuff, and Tom Lee has given us some great information. You should really pay attention. Click the like button, and then let's start. Some traders said this morning that it would go to a new high. Yes, I believe today's test will be interesting. I think today's drops will be very small, and the market might even end up higher than it started, since most investors sold hard at the bottom in April and then started to question. I didn't hear that about Rage. Yes, that was a good one. Is that your own place, or have you heard that one before? Yes, I've heard that. Rage sold. Okay, go ahead. And so as the markets rise, a lot of people doubt it because they thought it was a rally that would fail. I think there's 7 trying to cash in on the sidelines, a lot of skepticism from our institutional clients, and a lot of people betting outside the US, so I think it's going to be a lot of chasing on your end. I should say that a lot of shorts have already been covered, but a lot of the hedge fund guys who got it wrong and Rage sold, to your point, are in a very different position right now. There's a difference between being short and having positive beta to risk assets. Though I think most people are probably flat on their books, but if the market is above its 200-day moving average, which means people are buying on the spot, and you're flat, that means you're not investing enough. How are you thinking about possible changes to tax policy? It's clear that the market has responded very quickly to news about taxes. How about this one? Yes. Even though it's only the middle of the year, I think we should start to think about 2026. Tax policy isn't the only thing that can be a boost. It looks like it will happen, but it's freedom. Several pieces of writing show that US companies have to pay more than $2 trillion in legal costs, and some say as much as $3 trillion. It's more important than the tax cuts. Yes, it's clear that we've been waiting for a while for the rule. So, in this situation, the always optimistic Dear Tom Lee, what are you looking at when it comes to the Magnificent Seven? The Nasdaq is of course under pressure today, but we kept a close eye on those. The Mag 7 fell first, so we think it will be in charge by the end of the year. A lot of people owned it, so it really washed out. I think Tesla was a great example of a case study. So I think the Mag 7 will get back to where it used to be. That's why the S&P should get back to its old highs and even go above them by the end of the year. What about money matters? Of course, that's an area where a lot of people were looking early on. Are you still thinking about that? The money's important, yes. You want the banks to do well, which they have been. If I were going to make a case for multiples, expanding financials is one place because these companies have shown they can handle volatility, both during Fed rate hikes and now with all the trouble. They are also more tech folk and have better credit ratings. I believe the number of should go up. And it's very true that all boats rise with liquidity, right? I'd like to point out that the price of XRP has gone up a fair bit since a lot of cash has come back into the system, but it's not really altcoin season yet. Yes, Bitcoin did go up to $111,000, and XRP went from about $2.00 to $250.00 at its peak. That's great. However, that's not even close to the price action we saw in November, when it was really an alt-run season. Solana and all of these other altcoins were doing really well, and I really think we'll have at least one more of them in 2026. That's also when I think the Magnificent Seven will start seeing a lot of price action. So there are a few more things that will come into play that will finally give all of our favorite cryptocurrencies the liquidity we've been waiting for. Tom Lee is going to add to this and make it a little more clear. Pay close attention to what he says and then stay tuned until the end for a very important lesson. Yes, they will flex in both ways. This means that I believe deregulation could make it easier to export, tax cuts that actually help people make more money. But I also think the S&P multiple should be going up because, once more, we've taken away a black swan event. For example, did you know that the time between April and February and April was a black swan event? Do you think the rating makes the case for tax cuts less strong? I don't think it will make much of a difference. Because the bond market problem is what you think it should be in the end. Don't mean a market from the point of view of the market. I mean from the point of view of how it looks politically. Yes, it could, but the US wasn't really AAA anymore since it was only one of three. That means it's not even a split AAA grade. We're seeing this big difference right now, right? Like the US study shows that people expect inflation to be at a banana level, but it turns out to be very low. A recession happens when people become very careful and cut back on spending. That's why I believe people need to keep their confidence and keep their jobs. So you believe in the numbers instead of the feelings. Well, I think this is the biggest difference between inflation and earned income that you have ever seen. So I would say that the customer has a small chance to feel even better as long as inflation doesn't go through the roof. Wow. Yes, a lot of the people you used to work with at JPM believe that the hard numbers will eventually beat the survey work. Yeah. In any case, I'm paying attention because JP Morgan does a lot of work and has credit card information. That's why we need to watch it. In other words, it's clear that keeping an eye on credit card debt will be a very important part of this going forward. But here's the deal, right? The amount of debt has always gone through the roof as money has become more common. It seems like a natural link, right? More debt and money, of course. Since there is more money in circulation, more people are taking out loans and getting loans. This means that your money is worth less, so you need more of it to buy the same things you bought before, right? In the debt economy, that's just how money works. In that case, I agree with Tom Lee that he makes some great points. I agree with him that there will be at least one big rise in 2025 before the end of the year, and the stock market is expected to reach all-time highs. We are already beginning to do that with Bitcoin, at least in the crypto market. We also know that altcoins will get money in the end. What I really don't care about is whether that happens in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I'll be ready for it whenever it does. You guys can be fully prepared for whenever it happens for free if you aren't already.